Blade forms an uneasy alliance with the Vampire Council in order to combat the Reapers, who are feeding on vampires. Blade 2 is up next on Inside Movies. Hey guys, welcome to Inside Movies with George Michail. Really quick, if you like this kind of content, make sure you're subscribed and tell a friend about it. I'm joined by novelist Andrew Buckley, writer-illustrator GMB CHOMICHUK, and the editor-in-chief of Merc Publishing, Murphey. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about Blade 2. This has got to be like the best of the Blades. What do you guys think? What's the good?
I mean, I always love Ron Perlman, and he plays the same kind of character he always does, but the fact that it's a vampire just gives it enough of a twist that it's like, it feels kind of like fresh and new. So I really, the whole vampire team that he works with, I really enjoyed a lot. Norman Reedus. I completely forgot that Norman Reedus was in this movie. So when he first came up, it was like one of those like, is that? No, it's not. It's like took like 3 or 4 times of seeing him on screen to like really like be able to recognize him. And it's like, it's weird that he looks exactly the same, but he's like a cute teenager somehow.
Yeah, because he's still Boondock Saints Norman Reedus.
Yeah,
That's true.
Boondock Saints Norman Reedus is a different kind of Norman Reedus.
It's not the Daryl Dixon Norman Reedus that we know now.
Yeah, I really liked his scud, and he calls Blade B, and he's kind of like, and like his betrayal was like a real surprise to me. Like I was like, oh my god, I can't believe it. And he showed his like tattoos on the inside of his lip, and I'm like, oh, that's so smart that you would like hide something like that so not everyone would know. I thought he was great, and he kind of reminded me of like Eminem. I don't know, like this kind of like rapper kind of vibe to him. I don't know.
Oh my god. Okay, so things I loved about this movie. So the first Blade, if you've tuned into the first Blade and our review of the first Blade, you know that I think one of the underlying themes of the original Blade is, the sexual power of the vampires transcending certain boundaries. They went a completely different direction in this. Guillermo Del Toro took the vampires and literally had their faces split open in a monstrous, horrific visage to just let us know, like, there is another side of vampires that are not beautiful and utterly terrifying, amazing.
Well, and the effects of their faces opening up are still great. Like, I mean, you can tell that it's CGI of the day, but like, oh, it's still, I mean, it's believable. It's seamless. And I mean, to go from the original Blade with such a blah, villain to go to the Reapers and like, oh, and I honestly, I didn't remember the plot of this film much at all. So at the end, when it like comes out with the ring and it's like, oh, it's his son, or the brother to the, the vampire that Blade has been with this entire time, that I was like watching it for the first time. I was like, oh shit, like such a good villain. Such a good villain. And then like the twist of, oh, the guy that you thought you were working with is actually the villain. Like this is, we're going to talk about with the next movie, like, a weak villain can kill a movie. With this one, it drove the storyline. And like, you really felt like there was like danger in the situation. Like I loved it.
But it actually worked. Like it's stupid because it's still vampires and it's still, everything that goes into this universe. But Del Toro's like, I don't know if it's his direction or the style they use. I mean, you said the mouth opening thing was like CGI of the day. 50% of it was practical effect. They actually showed it on all behind the scenes where it actually showed them puppeteering like the opening of it. And it looks so good that you can't tell which part is CGI and which part is actually a live effect. It's just so well done. But the story progression, I mean, it's got holes in it. It's got some minor crap with like, there's a lot of sunlight in some places where the vampires just are not burning up in the slightest. But the whole twist
not direct sunlight, Andrew. They're not in direct sunlight.
He'd walk through sunlight when they were in the what was the name of that club that they went to? The Hell Club or something? Or where it was where Blade first fought the bad guy?
House of Pain.
House of Pain. The House of Pain scene where Blade chases him and they end up like in almost a clock tower-ish kind of thing or something. There's so much sunlight coming through that the Novak, is it Novak, the bad guy, runs through. There's no way he would have survived. Like he would die. But anyways, that's beside the point, because you don't notice any of that crap because it's so well done. The dialogue wasn't like cheesy to the point of like, a Blade Trinity, for example. Like it was all like to the point. It had, but then you also had like Perlman delivering it. You had Chris Christopherson like chewing up scenery and something that should be stupid for him to play, but he did it so good. He believed it. It was really fun to watch.
I mean, a couple of things. There's an autopsy scene, which is like classic Del Toro, but there's also all the things that are built into the sets, characters, and props that tell elements of the story that are not part of the script, but support the world of the vampires so well. I'd love to get my hands on it. Apparently there is I don't know if there are copies, but Guillermo Del Toro kept a Bible of all his drawings and production stills and like poems he wrote and stories and all these things that went into just thinking about the world of the vampires of that film, that then he brought to the production team and said, put as much of this sort of around the edges of this film as you can. I just think that's masterful storytelling.
I kind of like Del Toro making movies like this. Like I know it's a lot more Academy Award winning and prestigious to be making Nightmare Alley and Shape of Water and stuff, but when he was making like Hellboy and Blade 2,
you left out Mimic.
Yeah.
Human cockroach movie. Who else but him could have made it? No one.
Yeah. I don't feel like we spent enough time on the Blood Pack. Like they were
cool. So
and
good.
The martial arts in it is awesome, and they all kind of have like their little personalities. And Donnie Yen's in it, and he actually did the choreography for the film, and that guy's like a legend. And so to have
that
him
explains so much. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but it sucks that he got taken out the way he did. Like he didn't seem to have a time to fully shine. Really. Yeah. But it was still really good. And I mean, who else? There's Donnie Yen, and then there was obviously Rob Perlman. Danny John Jules is like from England. Danny John Jules is famous in England. Like he was on the show called Red Dwarf for years. I think he's actually still on it. But to see that this was his big transition into like American movies, it was cool to see him play this character because it's completely different than the character he plays.
Well, another thing that I really liked was even though Nysa, who was like the female or the one of the girls in the Blood Pack that was the daughter of like the king vampire, she didn't necessarily have a really like well-rounded like personality, that they got into. But I think that her storyline through the film was solid. And we talked about in the first Blade movie how they didn't try to like pigeonhole a romance into it. And I think that they did a really good job in this one of kind of giving them a little bit of a romantic kind of side story, but they're in the middle of all this action, and they don't do that unbelievable thing where like you're in the middle of this like war and then you go and have a romance on the side and then get back to the war. Like the romance was kind of like intertwined into the story, and then when she gets bit and she has to she's gonna die, and so they kind of have that like romantic like goodbye on the rooftop. I thought that was really well done. I really did.
And I think that was all kind of based off of from David Goyer's script, where he poses the question, well, what about these purebloods, the ones that were born a vampire? Like, so you're hunting down people that have emotions and feelings and stuff like that, and they didn't choose this life, they were just born into it.
Yeah, you can't be upset at a shark for just
sharking it up,
seal into the water, right? It's just got to eat those poor born bloods. What can they do? Let's
talk more about Novak though, because like these Reapers are cool. Like in addition to how they appear visually, like he's a physical threat to Blade. Like you really believe that like Blade's having a hard time battling against him, and his like minions kind of have like that Nosferatu vibe where they lose their hair and they got the pointy ears and stuff. Mm-hmm. And like this thing, I don't know, like I'd never seen that before, so that was like really cool to me.
Yeah, and a classic Del Toro move too in the story structure is to give us a villain who is a monster but also a person, right? And we see that he's motivated by his shame and all of these other things that are underlying him, so that when he's just out doing monster things, Blade's got to stop him. But once you learn a little bit about him, you're like, oh, well, maybe in the same situation, you'd have no choice but do the same kind of stuff. So I think that's a plus for this movie for sure.
Well, yeah, and like there's some depth to the script where there's like a family dynamic that's going on in it, and it enriches the world and makes you kind of feel for the villain a bit, because he's rejected by his father. So I think it's some great writing. And if you want to become a better writer, I recommend checking out Wordsmith Academy. Andrew Buckley, can you tell us a little bit about this website?
Wordsmith Academy is an online writing hub that features live classes, recorded classes, and online self-paced courses for all different kinds of writing. So if you're interested in poetry, if you're interested in novel writing or screenwriting or TV writing, like we have classes for all the different kinds of genres of writing. And it's taught by industry professionals. We got Brett Scribe coming in, who is a Hollywood screenwriter. He worked with Chris Vogler on The Hero's Journey. We have Judith Hill, poet. We have GMB CHOMICHUK, our very own, coming in to talk about comic book writing. So we got all kinds of different awesome instructors to draw on. So if you're interested in writing, in any kind of writing, these guys have some amazing insight to give. So check out wordsmithacademy.com.
Yes, and there's a link in the description of this video. So click that link and go check out Wordsmith Academy and become a better writer. I feel like we've heaped enough praise on Blade 2. Let's get into the bad. What'd you guys not like?
If you want to talk about the bad of Blade 2, you should look no further than the special features of Blade 2. Find a DVD copy and watch Guillermo Del Toro rip his own film to shreds. It is amazing to watch a person put that much energy into his film and then go through it scene by scene and nitpick everything that he sees wrong. Oh, the lighting is bad here. Oh, the set is off there. Oh, we missed the cue there. Oh, that's my fault. I'm the director. That's me. And he just takes the blame for everything that's wrong with the film. And it's so wonderful.
They always say that our biggest critics are ourselves, you know, when we're artists. And so that's, to do it out publicly is, oh. But I mean, one of the only things that comes to mind immediately is there's some of the fight scenes. The CGI is kind of floppy, I guess would be the right word. You know, they don't look real. It kind of goes from like realism to more of an anime style. Whereas the original Blade, like one of my favorite things about it was that all of the fighting was real, you know, that it was all choreographed and it was all, you know, it was all just actual moves. And so to go from that to like some like more heavily CGI'd fights, I didn't really enjoy that.
Yeah, I did feel like Del Toro, his stronger suit was directing the horror and adding the suspense and stuff like that. The action, like I wanted a few longer cuts. It was like, you know, they were kind of a little bit cut up quick, which I guess maybe was a style at the time, but now I just want like a little bit longer of a time spent on the action.
It was a little choppy in places. I think when he was fighting, I know what you're talking about, Murphy. Like when he was fighting Nisa, I think in front of like the godlights at their base.
At the first time we beat them.
He went like weird, kind of flippy floppy at a few points where it was just kind of like you can tell that it switched all of a sudden, and they were just CGIing the shit out of it.
In his own words, Guillermo Del Toro calls that part the fucking Street Fighter mistake.
Yeah, it looked video game-ish. It's true.
Yeah.
It's exactly what it looked like.
Yeah.
So
he's like, I'm sorry for this fucking Street Fighter mistake that I made here. I shouldn't have done this.
But they also did it with the fight with Novak, but it was less noticeable. But it was so that they could get that weird point of view switch where somebody jumps like way off screen and they switch and then they jump back into it. Like it was, I don't think you could have done it at the time as a practical piece anyways. But it was super interesting to watch. But it didn't pull me out enough that I was like, oh, it's terrible. It's still badass fight sequences. Especially the last one where he comes out of the blood pool thing and then beats the crap out of like 40 guards with like the shock sticks. Like there is inconsistency with the Reapers as far as what they can and can't do and what kills them and what doesn't kill them. I mean, and how fast they change. Like the one guy, Priest, changed in like 10 minutes, but then Lighthammer, what was his name? He took like 4 hours, 5 hours to change before you actually switch. And then sometimes that UV thing works, but doesn't all the time. And those UV things, interestingly, they'd like temporarily blinded like 30 cast members playing around with those effects too.
I will say
it was bad.
I will say those UV bombs I put in the good category. That was cool.
They were cool.
Those were super cool. And the way that you could kind of see that them actually working together, of Blade being like, run, like every time he's gonna let one off, I got like a real sense of camaraderie when they were like down in the caves or wherever they were.
Yeah, and speaking of that camaraderie, I think I don't know where it falls on the chronology, but I don't know if we have Blade 2 to thank for Ron Perlman and Guillermo Del Toro getting together. And so because of that, we have him as Hellboy.
This
Or
was
if they
really
were trying to get Hellboy off the ground, and then when they were working on Blade 2, he's like, hey, I got a part for you. I don't know where it falls in there, but anytime those two are working together, I just think it comes across so great.
They'd already been trying to launch it. He put Perlman into Blade 2 because he was somebody he really liked as an actor and wanted him to play Hellboy, but they couldn't get it off the ground. It wasn't until like, I don't know, I think a year later that it got greenlit for Hellboy, and then they were off to the races.
Let's get into the skinny. Let's give our final grades for Blade 2. I'll go first. I'm gonna go like kind of super high. I just like this movie like a lot. I'm gonna go A- for me. Like I liked it, man. Like this is great.
Yeah, I can't fault this movie. It's super freaking fun. I give it 4 exploding scuds out of 5.
I'm going to give this movie 5 out of 5 Michael Bolton wigs on the Vampire Lord. Now, in order to know what I'm talking about, you got to dig into those special features to see Michael Bolton Vampire Lord. And they get 5 of those for this movie.
I'm going to give it 85 Reapers chasing you on walls out of 100.
Nice. All right, that's going to do it for another episode of Inside Movies. I've been George Michail, joined by novelist Andrew Buckley, writer, illustrator GMB CHOMICHUK, and the editor-in-chief of Merc Publishing, Murphey. Go check out Wordsmith Academy if you're thinking about becoming a writer. It's a great website, lots of helpful information out there for you to check out. Follow along with us on our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter, all that stuff. Also linked in the description of this video. And until next time, peace.